Across the Atlantic, Americans look at this carnage with horror.
That war was just so confusing to so many people who didn't know what in the world was happening, why such a calamity should have befallen the world. We often talk of a fog of war, but we also have to, I think, understand that there was a fog of diplomacy, a fog surrounding our understanding of foreign relations. And Wilson helped to lift that because he tried as best he could to understand what was going on. And he said, look, here's what the problems are. Here's what this war means.
Wilson believed really that all of the participants shared equally in the responsibility for the war, that it had been this system of secret alliances that had led to the war. So at the very beginning of the war, he urged his fellow citizens to be neutral in thought as well as deed.
The controversial question is, what does it mean to be neutral? Does being neutral mean you don't help anybody, you stay completely out of it? That's one definition. But that's not the definition that Wilson embraces. The definition that he embraces is the definition that all the warring nations must treat America equally, meaning that warring nations must respect American rights to do what it wants and trade with whom it likes. And that, of course, will create a bit of a conflict with Germany.
As the war became more brutal, several things occurred which changed American public opinion, polarized it, changed it in a variety of directions. People who didn't like Russia were not very eager to see the United States intervene in the war on the side of Russia against Germany. Such people didn't have any great brief for the Germans, but they were quite hostile to Russia.
There was a strong socialist movement and anarchist movement in American society. They were opposed to war. There were groups who were uncertain about the wisdom of us going to war, religious pacifists who thought that nothing would be gained by war except a tremendous amount of killing and suffering. A large part of the women's movement was opposed to the war because they thought this to be an example of male aggression, which would only bring further misery and which women should not in any way condone. And then there were very large groups of immigrants, such as the Irish and the Germans, two of the largest immigrant groups in American society at the time, who did not believe that either we should get into the war or that we should fight on the British side.
On the other hand, the British made a concerted effort, starting in the fall of 1914, to change American public opinion about the war. They widely disseminated in the United States stories of atrocities that the Germans had committed.
The raping of Belgian women, the bayoneting of babies, there's just sort of constant atrocity stories that are being pumped into the press to start calling the Germans the Huns, the barbaric influence of Germany in the conquered territories.
The trouble is, a lot of them are exaggerated, it turns out, in the end. And not only that, even what isn't exaggerated, there's a great deal of excessive moral fervor behind the pro-war campaign.